The forgotten secret every man over 60 needs to hear. Why masturbation isn't just normal, it's essential for health, vitality, and longevity. By Dr. Mohit Khera, MD, men's health specialist, Baylor College of Medicine. The lie you've been told your whole life. They told you that masturbation was dirty, that it was something you should have grown out of by the time you hit 50. They whispered it in locker rooms. They hinted at it in Sunday school. Some even shouted it from pulpits or scolded you as a child when they caught you touching yourself. But here's what no one ever told you. After 60, masturbation isn't just normal. It could be the difference between thriving and fading away. I'm Dr. Mohit Khera, a urologist and professor of men's health at Baylor College of Medicine. I've spent over 30 years treating men like you, strong, proud, silent warriors who've carried their burdens alone. And I've seen the quiet consequences of shame, misinformation, and neglect. I've watched good men suffer, not from disease, but from what they never knew. Because the truth is this, most older men masturbate the wrong way, or worse, stop altogether. And that choice, whether made consciously or unconsciously, can shape your hormones, your heart, even your brain. Done poorly, masturbation can contribute to erectile dysfunction, depression, and prostate problems. Done right, it can boost testosterone, improve sleep, and keep your vascular system alive. This isn't just about pleasure. This is about preserving function, reclaiming connection, and fighting back against aging, where it starts, in the nervous system. So let me ask you, if one part of your daily routine held the key to better health, better mood, and better vitality, wouldn't you want to know what it is? Stay with me. What you're about to hear might just change the way you live the next 10 years of your life. Mindless masturbation can lead to numbness and erectile dysfunction, ED. Let me tell you something I wish more men had the courage to talk about. Over the years, I've had hundreds of older patients come into my office, quietly ashamed, eyes down, voices barely above a whisper. After some time, when the conversation turned honest, I would ask, "Do you masturbate?" Almost always, there was a pause. Then came the confession. "Yeah, but I don't feel much anymore. I can't finish unless I do it a certain way. It's like my body forgot how to feel." What they didn't know was that the way they'd been masturbating, quick, mechanical, disconnected, had been training their body into dysfunction. And the consequences? Quiet, creeping, devastating. Mindless masturbation isn't just a bad habit. It's a neurological conditioning loop. Every time you rush through the act, tension in your shoulders, scrolling through intense images, using the same hand, same motion, same outcome, you're teaching your brain to associate arousal with that very specific routine. And unfortunately, the brain is a fast learner. So what happens over time? Your sensitivity drops. Your erection quality fades. You might notice you need more stimulation, more pressure, more tricks, just to feel the same way you did before. It becomes harder to respond to a real partner. You start avoiding intimacy because it feels too different, too slow, too real. And this is where the real damage sets in, not just physically, but emotionally. I've seen men spiral into frustration, shame, even depression, thinking their body is broken. But in many cases, their body isn't broken. It's overtrained in the wrong direction. This conditioning can lead to something called porn-induced erectile dysfunction, PIDE. It can also cause delayed ejaculation, or in some cases, complete anorgasmia, the inability to climax at all. These aren't rare conditions. They're quietly affecting millions of men. And the cruel part? Most of them never realize it's something they've unintentionally done to themselves. But here's the worst part, and I want you to hear me on this. When you condition your body this way and you don't reverse course, it's not just sex you lose. You lose confidence. You lose connection. You begin to retreat. Your relationship with your own body turns cold. You avoid touch. You avoid closeness. For many men, that sense of isolation becomes the gateway to much darker places, emotional distance, depression, even early signs of cognitive decline. I've seen it again and again. The price you pay isn't just in the bedroom. It's in your spirit. It's in the way you carry yourself when you walk into a room. It's in the way you stop looking at yourself in the mirror. You slowly begin to disappear. Now, I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to wake you up. Because the good news is, your body can relearn. The nervous system can heal. But it takes awareness, patience, and a new way of approaching self-pleasure. One that's slower, more conscious, and more connected. not just to sensation, but to emotion. Masturbation isn't the enemy, but doing it without awareness is like putting your car in gear and stepping on the gas without steering. Eventually, you crash, and by the time you notice the damage, the repair can take far longer than you think. Not masturbating after 60 might be sabotaging your health from the inside out. There's a man I remember clearly from a few years back. Let's call him David. He was 68, proud, reserved, the kind of guy who didn't like to talk about personal matters. But he came to see me because he was getting up 5, sometimes 6 times a night to pee. He said he felt pressure, fullness, even a dull ache deep in his pelvis. He thought it was just old age catching up. What he didn't expect me to ask was, "When was the last time you ejaculated?" He blinked at me like I'd asked him something absurd. "Years," he said. "I haven't had sex since my wife passed." And to be honest, I thought men my age were supposed to stop doing that. That right there is the myth. Once you hit a certain number, 60, 70, you're supposed to just shut the whole system down. But here's what I told David, and what I'll tell you now. When you stop ejaculating, your prostate doesn't stop working. It keeps producing fluid. And if that fluid isn't released, it builds up, creating a kind of stagnant reservoir inside your body. That buildup, that's what leads to prostate congestion, inflammation, discomfort, and over time, real health risks. Your prostate is not designed to store fluid indefinitely. When it does, it becomes swollen, inflamed, and irritated. That's when you start experiencing urinary urgency, weak stream, dribbling, even pain during urination or ejaculation. Most men chalk it up to aging, but in reality, it's a system backed up and under pressure. Here's where it gets serious. Chronic inflammation in the prostate has been linked to an increased risk of prostate cancer. Now, I'm not saying that abstaining causes cancer, but I am saying that frequent ejaculation helps reduce the inflammatory environment that can make the prostate more vulnerable to disease. And there's more. A large Harvard study followed nearly 30,000 men over years and found that those who ejaculated at least 21 times per month had a significantly lower risk of developing prostate cancer than those who didn't. That's not myth. That's data. But let me bring it back to David. Once we talked, once he understood what was really happening inside his body, he made a change. He began touching himself again, not out of lust or loneliness, but out of care. Slowly, his symptoms improved. The pressure eased. His sleep got better. And more than that, something in his eyes lit up again. He was reconnected to a part of himself he thought had been put to rest. The price of neglecting this isn't just a few bad nights of sleep. It's chronic discomfort. It's medication you might not need. It's surgery down the road. And yes, it could be a higher risk for cancer. All because of a belief that a man your age should no longer claim this part of his health. You wouldn't ignore your heart. You wouldn't ignore your blood pressure. Don't ignore your prostate. Shame around self-touch damages your mental health. There's a certain silence that lives in a lot of older men. I see it all the time in my office. It shows up not in what they say, but in what they don't. It's the way their eyes shift when I ask about sexual habits. The way their shoulders sink when the word masturbation comes up. The way they laugh it off, change the subject, or tell me, "Doc, that's not something I do anymore. That was for when I was younger." But I can hear the subtext. It's not that they stopped because they wanted to. It's that somewhere along the way, they were taught it was wrong to keep going. And let me be honest with you. This kind of shame, quiet and unspoken, is one of the most dangerous forces acting against your health today. For decades, many of you were raised in a time when touching yourself was called dirty, sinful, weak. You were punished, ridiculed, made to feel embarrassed. And those early messages, they didn't disappear. They just went underground. They sat in your nervous system, deep in your bones, quietly shaping your relationship with your body. Even now, the result? A quiet withdrawal. You begin to disconnect from physical touch, even when you crave it. You begin to see desire as something inappropriate. You stop reaching for yourself, not because you don't want to, but because you've been conditioned to feel that you shouldn't. And over time, that disconnection becomes more than emotional. It becomes biological. Because here's what most men don't know. Regular, healthy sexual touch, including masturbation, supports mental well-being in real, measurable ways. It regulates cortisol, boosts dopamine, fosters oxytocin, your brain's trust and connection hormone. It even helps with sleep, mood, and cognitive function. But shame disrupts all of that. Shame tightens your muscles, raises your stress hormones, creates guilt loops in your mind that you don't even notice anymore. Shame is a stressor, and chronic stress is linked to anxiety, depression, heart disease, immune dysfunction, and even dementia. I had a patient once, 72, recently divorced, deeply depressed. He wasn't on any medications, no major health issues, but he was exhausted, numb, isolated. He told me he hadn't had any sexual activity, not with someone else, not alone, in over a decade. I just thought that chapter was closed. And underneath his words was a quiet grief, not for the loss of sex, but for the loss of self. We worked together, slowly. No pills, no drastic changes, just simple exercises to reconnect him to his own body, without guilt, without expectation. After a few weeks, something shifted. He started walking taller. He was sleeping better. He laughed again. His blood pressure came down. He wasn't fixed. He was reconnected. That's the price shame asks of you. It takes your vitality, one slow inch at a time. It tricks you into thinking you're too old to feel alive. But you're not. You are never too old to touch yourself with kindness, with dignity, with purpose. You are never too old to feel whole. How pornography silently rewires your brain. There's a moment I remember vividly from my early years in practice. A man in his mid-60s sat across from me, shoulders slumped, eyes tired but searching. He had come in for what he thought was prostate discomfort, frequent urination, pressure in his pelvis, trouble sleeping. But as we talked, the conversation drifted into territory he clearly wasn't expecting. I asked him gently, "When was the last time you ejaculated?" He hesitated. "Honestly," he said, "I don't know. Maybe 6 months ago. I watch porn sometimes, but it doesn't really do anything for me anymore." That confession didn't surprise me. It was one I'd heard too many times before. But what did surprise me, and what always hits me like a quiet thunderclap, was the way he followed it up. "I used to love sex," he said, "even alone. But now, I feel like I'm just going through the motions. Like my body forgot how to feel." And that, right there, is the silent tragedy of pornography, especially in older men who think they're just indulging in harmless pleasure. Pornography isn't evil. It isn't inherently destructive. But when consumed without awareness, particularly by men over 60 who are already navigating hormonal decline, emotional isolation, and physical changes, it can become a kind of invisible addiction, one that rewires the brain, dulls sensation, and quietly erodes your ability to feel joy in real life. Let me explain. The dopamine loop, why you need more, faster, harder. Every time you watch porn, even if it's just softcore content, your brain releases a surge of dopamine. That's the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation, reward, and pleasure. In short bursts, it feels good. It gives you a little hit of excitement, a spark. But here's the problem. Over time, your brain gets used to that spike. It starts demanding more stimulation to get the same rush. What once felt exciting becomes routine. What used to make you hard now barely registers. So you scroll further. You click on something with more intensity. Maybe it's faster cuts, louder sounds, or more extreme visuals. You chase the feeling you used to have, not realizing that each time you do, you're reinforcing a cycle that makes it harder and harder to feel anything at all. This is called neurological desensitization. And it's not about willpower or weakness. It's about biology. Your brain is built to adapt. That's its superpower. But when you feed it artificial highs, fast-paced, high-stimulation content, it recalibrates. It raises the bar for what counts as arousal. Suddenly, real-life intimacy feels slow. Real touch feels less intense. Even your own hand doesn't quite give you the satisfaction it used to. You start needing more pressure, more novelty, more visual input. And eventually, you might not be able to climax at all, unless you're watching a screen.